I just want to provide an overview of sustainability in Hawaii. My name is Danielle Bass. I'm the state sustainability coordinator for the state of Hawaii, and I administer the statewide sustainability branch in the state of Hawaii's Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. It's a pleasure to be here. Excuse me, I hope you can see my screen okay. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to just make sure we're all using the definition. In the state of Hawaii, we define sustainability. It's predominantly those three pillars, right? Economic growth, environmental protection, since to Ron's point, we are islands in the middle of the Pacific. Our environment is very important to us. And of course, social and cultural equity. We have a very strong indigenous community here that goes back to our Polynesian and Native Hawaiian ancestry. So cultural values and cultural characteristics are extremely important in the state of Hawaii when we want to consider and discuss the issue of sustainability. So I wanted to just briefly share with you the creation of the statewide sustainability branch. This was recently established in 2020. And what my office does is that we're going to really develop, organize, and promote policies and programs that assist in meeting the state of Hawaii's numerous policies and sustainability and climate strategies and goals. I'll be going into that a little bit later. We're going to go ahead and identify, evaluate, and make recommendations regarding proposed legislation, regulatory changes, policy modifications to the state's governor, the legislature, all of our government agencies, the counties, the private sectors, as well as non-governmental organizations. So we work with and for everyone here. Finally, we want to develop these and promote these proposals that jointly and mutually enhance our economy, environment, and our people in Hawaii so that we can ensure that there is well-being for our present and future generations here in Hawaii. That is what our charge is in this branch. So why are we doing this? Why does Hawaii care about sustainability? We're seeing direct climate impacts. These are just recent pictures from the types of climate impact change that we're seeing. We're seeing coral bleaching in our islands. Many of you who come to the state of Hawaii, you enjoy our beaches, you enjoy our marine ecosystems with snorkeling. We want to ensure that we are protecting our marine ecosystems so that those ecosystems are sustained for future generations. We've noticed over time that we've lost 17% of precipitation over the last 30 years. Water is life here in Hawaii. It is extremely valuable. It is a natural resource and a public trust issue for the people of the state of Hawaii. Our islands are seeing a lot less of it. We are seeing more drought. And so there are more motives to start recycling, recharging, reclaiming, and conserving water. On the flip side, we're seeing tremendous amount of water or rain bombs or Kona low events in which you'll see during the winter months that we'll have a tremendous amount of precipitation, which collects and provides more flooding in our urban communities. And then, of course, runs off into our marine ecosystems. You see this damage along our coastal highways, in our private property, in our commercial property, and in our government buildings. And finally, of course, the biggest climate change impact for the state of Hawaii that we are planning for and coordinating and implementing to adapt to is sea level rise. So I want to give you that picture of what we are facing as a state. In terms of the laws that we're passing for the state of Hawaii, we have codified a numerous amount of sustainability and climate policies that are mandated to be achieved by a certain time. First and foremost, we have our 2020 statutory target to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to match the levels of our 1990 emissions. I am pleased to report that we have matched those 1990 emission levels, and we're continuing to go down in our greenhouse gas emission reduction. This year, later on this year, we will implement the ban on coal power here in the state of Hawaii. It is codified in law, and we are now transitioning our energy resources and systems to start planning, coordinating, and implementing and preparing for this transition and power down of the ban of coal power use for our electricity throughout the state. Moving on into our 2030 target, in just 8 years away, we've mandated that we need to actually reduce our energy consumption through the promotion of an energy efficient portfolio standard. So statewide, there is a mandate for a 30% energy reduction goal, which equates to 4,300 gigawatts by the year 2030. And of course, our Public Utilities Commission has made milestone steps to make sure that we remain on target, so that by that 8-year mark in 2030. Also in 2030, a mere 8 years away, our state has mandated that we need to double local food production in these 8 years. We've also mandated that our Department of Education procure 30% of local produce. So when we're thinking about sustainability, I really want to expand this thinking that this is a very diversified thought process and value system for the state of Hawaii, in which, yes, energy, greenhouse gas reduction matters, but our sustainability also is extremely reliant on local food production, food self-sufficiency and sustainability, as well as water conservation and efficiencies, and many more values. Also, by 8 years away in 2030, we have mandated that the state of Hawaii's entire vehicle fleet be transitioned to become zero-emission vehicles at 100%. On top of all of these mandates, we have adopted various voluntary initiatives. This included is the Aloha Plus Challenge. I mentioned it is a voluntary initiative in which we've set goals to perform clean energy standards, double local food production, continue to protect our natural resource management, waste reduction, promote smart, sustainable communities, and green workforce. These goal values are all embedded and need to be achieved again in the next 8 years by 2030. Moving on to 2035, we have 2 state laws in which we've mandated that our entire University of Hawaii campus-wide system needs to be net zero in energy consumption by the year 2035. Additionally, in the state of Hawaii, all of our public schools are owned and operated by the state of Hawaii through a centralized process through our Department of Education. And those schools throughout our state, about 256, if I'm correct in that number, need to be net zero energy by the year 2035. And we are working, as you can see in the photo here, towards that transition. I'm very pleased to share with you the 2 of our University of Hawaii campuses, the Leeward Community College, as well as UH Maui College campus, have both achieved their net zero energy goals as early as 2020 and 2021, a decade earlier than expected by their mandate of 2035. So we are speeding along, making sure that we are implementing these goals and these projects. Moving on to 2045, many of you have probably heard about a renewable portfolio standard in which our electric utilities are mandated to establish a 100% renewable portfolio standard by the year 2045. In addition to that, the state of Hawaii is also mandated to sequester more atmospheric carbon and greenhouse gases than emitted as quickly as practicable, but no later than 2045. This is what we call our zero emissions clean economy target. So these 2 efforts are working hand in hand in alignment with each other. Finally, in terms of 2045, a very important law where all of our state and our county facilities need to reclaim 100% water, with the exception to potable and drinking water standards by the year 2045. So a lot of exciting opportunities and projects there as well in the future. We also have codified in our laws that new state buildings must be at least LEED Silver or 2 Green Globes equivalent. So in terms of any kind of new development for our state facilities, we're definitely incorporating LEED certification requirements at a minimum of the silver rating. And there is discussion right now with our legislative through our legislative process about even retrofitting and whether retrofitting should be LEED certified as well. Finally, to wrap it up, in terms of our 2050 statutory target, there is a cesspool mandatory upgrade. The state of Hawaii currently has approximately 88,000 cesspools across our state. This is because, of course, to Ron's point, we are islands in the middle of the Pacific. There are multiple islands, and these islands have actual very rural communities, which are not plugged into their respective county sewage systems. So right now, with the adoption of this law, just a few years ago, we are beginning the transition to upgrade, convert, and provide sewer connection to these cesspools by the year 2050. So 88,000 cesspools in just about 23 years from now. So in an opportunity to just share of how do we get there, we have the laws, now what? We have actually codified and created the official state climate and sustainability strategic action plan. This plan, named the Hawaii 2050 Sustainability Plan, is updated every 10 years. We've actually taken this opportunity through this update. It was recently published in June 2021. We worked with the United Nations and used their framework of the UN Sustainable Development Goals as a common framework for this decade of action. We reviewed and aligned over 150 of our laws, policies, and plans, our county climate and sustainability plans, voluntary initiatives like the Aloha Plus Challenge and our Sustainable Hawaii Initiative, all within that framework of the UN SDGs to have the output of this very important document, the Hawaii 2050 Sustainability Plan, which directs 8 focus areas, 38 strategies, and over 262 recommended actions, which we need to achieve by the year 2030. So that is available online at https://hawaii2050.hawaii.gov/interactive. I encourage you to take a look at the interactive site. It's a lot more fun, friendlier, and engaging than the PDF document. In terms of the PDF document, there's a photo of it. And just to give you an overview of those 8 focus areas, we are recommending for the attention of our policymakers, our decision makers, as well as our state agencies and county agencies, that we collectively, to achieve these mandated laws and our sustainability goals, we need to focus to promote a sustainable economic recovery from COVID-19, continue to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, improve our climate resilience and adaptation to sea level rise, advance sustainable communities through sustainable urban development in our built environments, advance equity to ensure that our rural areas, our neighbor islands, and our vulnerable communities are able to have equitable access to resources, affordable housing, and homelessness, and addressing the homelessness crisis, and improving our gender equity. We saw a lot of this during COVID-19's pandemic, where we needed to ensure equitable broadband access to these people throughout our state. And so this advancement of equity is absolutely important for this decade of action. Finally, the additional focus areas are we need to continue to institutionalize sustainability throughout government. This is a practice that we all are adopting, and we're going to continue to preserve our natural environment. Let's be clear. We know in the state of Hawaii that we have beautiful beaches, that we have warm ocean waters everyone wants to swim in. We know that we have beautiful mountains and we have a beautiful natural environment and ecosystem. We want to protect and preserve that as much as we can as a state. And while we are tackling these sustainability and climate challenges here in Hawaii, we need to understand, respectfully perpetuate our traditional ecological knowledge and values. So these are the 8 focus areas from the Hawaii 2050 Sustainability Plan in alignment with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the state of Hawaii's statutory and climate, sustainability and climate statutory targets. Again, the website to take a look at this important climate and sustainability plan is available at hawaii2050.hawaii.gov/interactive. It will help you understand the vision of where Hawaii wants to be in just these next 8 years, and how we're going to continue from 2030 to 2050 for our future generations.